Imagine a plain of grass and heat 2.5 million years ago. Dust rises like breath from the land. A group of hairy, upright apes steps out of the trees. They are not yet human as we know it, but they are the first sparks of a story that will end with cities, screens, and stories like this one. Meet Homo habilis, the handyman. Shorter than you, hairier than you, with long arms built for climbing and legs beginning to run. Their skulls are small compared to ours, a brain around 600 cubic centimeters, yet their hands tell a different story. Fingers that could grip precisely, thumbs that could press and hold. This combination would change everything. Homo habilis lived on the edge of two worlds, the trees and the open savanna. They climbed when danger thundered past. They walked upright when food and chance called them forward. Their faces still jutted outward, their noses flat, their eyes set high. Up close, they would look more like an ape than a neighbor. From a distance, their walk and their cunning would make them strangely familiar. Scientists place them in East and South Africa about 2.4 to 1.65 million years ago. The story of Homo habilis exploded into the world thanks to a single country gorge, Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. In 1959 and 1960, Mary and Louis Leakey and their team unearthed teeth, jaw fragments, and a partial skeleton that didn't fit any known ape. In 1964, Leakey and colleagues named it Homo habilis, and the name changed how we think about ourselves. The fossils and tools found there rewrote the map of early humankind. Museo de Historia Natural. Those tools, the Oldowan industry, were a simple but revolutionary set. Stones struck together to make sharp edges, used to cut, scrape, and open. They weren't elegant, they were effective. For the first time, animals altered the shape of their world by shaping stone. The presence of these tools alongside habilis remains is one of the clearest clues that these early apes were doing something. Close your eyes and picture this. A family of habilis trailing a vulture's shadow to a fresh carcass. A young male nervously grips a pebble, feels the sharpness edge by edge, and realizes this is more than a rock. It is a tool. The group huddles, scrapes meat from bone, shares the prize, and learns. The noise of the savanna, insect hum, croaking birds, distant roars, becomes background to a new, quieter sound, intent. In that intent, a quiet revolution begins. Now, imagine the moment when a fossil jaw and a few small teeth were pulled from dry earth and set on a table. Scientists bent forward. Questions multiplied. Who made these crude tools? Who walked upright with a mind big enough to plan? The Leakeys had found answers that would ripple through science. Habilis was not just another ape. They were the earliest known members of our genus, Homo. That change, from ape to early human, is more than a label. It marks a shift in behavior, in brains, in the way the world was used. But this was a messy, noisy discovery. Fossils arrived one bone at a time, some crushed, some whole. Scientists argued. Was habilis a separate species, or simply a variation of Australopithecus? Did stone tools belong to habilis, or to another hominin quietly sharing the plains? The debate made headlines and kept labs awake at night. Over decades, more bones and tools were found across East Africa, in Kenya, Ethiopia, and beyond, and the pieces began to assemble into a shaky, thrilling picture. Listen to that picture for a moment. Small families crossing a sunburnt plain, the smell of dried grass, the soft clank of stones as a child learns to chip a flake. These early hands were learning the language of the world, how to make an edge that cuts, how to use a rock to change another rock. That learning, repeated and passed down, becomes culture. From it grew better tools, hunting, and eventually a different way of life. Today's cities are echoes of those experiments. Next, predators, climate, a race for survival. From trees to tools, the evolution that made hands and minds. Picture a tree canopy that thins slowly, year after year. Fruit becomes scarce. Branches no longer stretch like a supermarket of food. Some apes face a choice: stay in the trees and hope, or risk the ground to find new meals. Over millions of years, this exact pressure nudged a line of apes toward a new way of moving. Legs lengthened, arms shortened. Bipedal walking became not just possible, but efficient. The ancestors of Homo habilis lived in this in-between world. Australopithecus, the southern ape, gave rise to early Homo. Australopithecus looked more like a classic ape than us. Long arms for climbing, jutting faces, a tiny brain case. But crucially, they already walked upright for long stretches. A branch of that story bent toward clever hands and bigger brains. Small changes in diet, climate, and social life pushed the switch. Fossils from East Africa provide the roadmap. Why did hands become so precise? One obvious answer is food. Stones smashed into bones and hard plant parts. With two hands free, an ape could hold food steady while scraping or whittling. But there's another possibility: social learning. The first person to show another how to strike a stone created a lesson that could spread. Suddenly, a trick that took a lifetime to invent became a daily habit. That kind of transmission, copying, and improving is the seed of culture. This is where Olduvai Gorge again becomes important. Not only bones showed up there, tools did too. The Oldowan industry, blunt, rounded at one end and sharp at the other, appears with habilis and its contemporaries. To make one, an ape would hold one rock in the hand and strike it with another until a sharp flake detached. It's a simple action. It is also a monumental one. Those flaked stones allowed access to meat, marrow, and new diets that fed growing brains. But Earth is rarely fair. The same forces that gave habilis an edge also created competition. Other hominins prowled the same plains. Paranthropus boise, a chunky, powerful cousin, grazed on tough vegetation. Later Homo species, Ergaster and Erectus, would arrive with larger bodies and bigger brains, possibly outcompeting habilis in the long run. Habilis may have been clever, but they were not the smartest or the largest on the block. Survival favored a mix of traits: brains, bodies, and luck. Evolution works in fits and starts. Small climatic shifts can tilt survival. A longer dry period means less fruit, more grass, more predators. That favors speed, planning, and technology. It nudges apes into a new niche: ground-dwelling omnivores who used rocks as tools and each other as teachers. Listen closer. Fossils are not photographs, they are riddles written in bone. From partial skulls and scattered teeth, scientists stitched together faces and minds. OH7, a partial juvenile skull found at Olduvai, and later specimens like OH24 and OH62 gave crucial hints about body shape, brain size, and hand anatomy. These finds show hands capable of precise grips and legs able to carry a body across long grasslands. Each fossil is a clue, and together they guide us through a fog of time. One of the most astonishing ideas that emerges from this evidence is that tool use and brain growth fed each other. A simple flake made it easier to access energy-rich foods. Energy-rich foods supported more complex brains. Bigger brains enabled better tool-making and social learning. The feedback loop that began here would accelerate over 1 million years and change the entire planet. We should be clear, habilis were not neat engineers. Oldowan tools look rough to us. They were made by swiping stones together, producing a jagged edge. Yet, the choice of which rock to strike, the angle of the blow, the ability to keep a sharp flake for reuse, these decisions show intent. They also show teaching and imitation. One family member copying another, one troop learning to sharpen. Imagine watching a habilis elder show a youngster how to aim a rock with a practiced twist of the wrist. That scene is the ancestor of apprenticeships, recipes, and tutorials. That scene is why we call them handy. Still, many mysteries remain. Which environmental shifts mattered most? How did habilis organize their groups? Were they monogamous, as some later hominins might have been, or did they have more complex mating systems? Archaeological clues point to communal living and shared responsibilities.
groups that could number like modern primate troops, working together to gather, protect, and teach. We'll follow the bones and the tools next. The discoverers, the debates, and the moment a fossil rewrote human history.
Bones, stones, and the people who found them. The scene is dusty and bright. Teams of archaeologists crouch in a shallow trench. Brushes sweep away a century of soil. In Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania, Mary Leakey and her collaborators were the detectives of deep time. The first traces that hinted at something new were not dramatic skulls, but simple teeth. Then came OH7, a partial juvenile skull and hand bones, and the world leaned in. These fragments screamed possibility, an ape that walked, thought, and made tools differently. The initial announcement in 1964 by Louis Leakey, Philip Tobias, and John Napier named a species, Homo habilis. The name meant handy, a nod to the evidence that these apes were using tools in a way that previous species had not. The declaration ignited controversy. Some scientists said the bones were too similar to Australopithecus to justify a new species. Others argued habilis was the missing link to later humans. That debate shaped paleoanthropology for decades. Fossils tell stories about movement. Habilis shows a blend. Feet adapted for long walks across grasslands, but still arms built for climbing. The legs were longer than an Australopithecus, hinting at stamina. The hands had bones, evidence of precision grip. The skulls were small compared to ours, roughly half the volume, with a rounded forehead beginning to bud, a flatter nose, and forward-facing nostrils. These traits made habilis a middle step. No longer a tree-only ape, but not yet a modern human. Let's look at those hands. Excavated wrist and finger bones reveal the capacity for a precision grip, the kind of grip you use to hold a handle or pinch a thin object. That grip enabled controlled strikes that produced sharper flakes. It also made for better food processing, cutting, scraping, and preparing. With such hands, the first technologies could spread beyond chance and into habit. Tools are the fingerprints of behavior. Oldowan tools are simple. A rounded core worked to produce sharp flakes. The core might be used to pound, the flake to cut. This combination extended what habilis could eat. Bones opened to get marrow, tough skins peeled back. Even if habilis were not the top hunters, scavenging opened a vital dietary niche. Rather than chasing large game, they followed vultures and scavenged carcasses, using flaked stones to harvest what remained. One of the most striking finds in Olduvai is not a tool or a bone, but a circle of volcanic stones, planted firmly into the ground in a deliberate arrangement. Mary Leakey suggested the stones might have supported a pole or framework, maybe a simple windbreak or basic shelter. If habilis or a contemporary species built it, then architecture, however rudimentary, predates our expectations. It hints at planning and communal work, multiple hands arranging stones for a purpose. Whether habilis made it remains debated, but the possibility flips our imagination. Fieldwork, however, is a human story. The Leakeys worked with local diggers and teams, and the history of discoveries includes many names beyond the famous family. Each fossil came out of the ground in a context of weather, politics, funding, and luck. Sometimes a distracted footstep reveals a tiny tooth that rewrites textbooks. Other times, a storm uncovers a slab of bone that was waiting for decades. The process is messy, accidental, and beautiful in equal measure. At the end of a long day, the bones stack in trays, and questions pile higher. Did habilis live in family bands? Were they monogamous? How did they teach? To answer these, scientists examine wear on teeth, breakage patterns on bones, and tool distributions across sites. Archaeology is both detective work and storytelling. Each interpretation is provisional, awaiting the next surprising clue. Controversy also lingers about classification. Some researchers argue that fossils attributed to habilis include more than one species, perhaps Homo rudolfensis among them.
Scientific names can hide messy variation. But even amid arguments, the core fact remains. These creatures were experimenting with tools, social learning, and new diets in ways that would set the stage for later humans. Next, predators, climate, a race for survival. The end game: predators, climate, and disappearance. By now, Habilis had carved a life between trees and open land. But the Pleistocene savannas were crowded and violent. Large cats prowled the grass. Hyenas ran in packs. Crocodiles waded in rivers. A single misstep could be the end. Fossils sometimes carry the proof: bite marks on bones, scars on bones, and even, in at least one case, a foot so badly damaged it suggests a crocodile attack. The dangers shaped behavior. Groups stayed close, youngsters learned quickly, and the fastest or smartest survived a little longer. Where did Habilis get its meat? The answer is often scavenging. Predators like big cats and hyenas killed first. Habilis followed the birds and scavenged carcasses, using sharp flakes to cut meat and break bones for marrow. Hunting of large prey was likely rare. Instead, Habilis specialized in turning leftovers into energy, a reliable niche that nevertheless kept them below apex predators on the food chain. Competition from other hominins may also have mattered. Later Homo species, such as Homo ergaster and Homo erectus, had bigger bodies, different social structures, and eventually more refined toolkits. In some regions, multiple Homo species lived side by side. These interactions could have been neutral, hostile, or competitive. When environments tightened, competition would have sharpened. Imagine the savanna at dawn: thin sun, dew on grass, and the hush before a hunt. A Habilis troop moves like cautious shadow. Some watch the tall grasses, some keep low, others climb a nearby thorn tree at the first sign of movement. In such an ecosystem, knowledge mattered as much as strength. Where to find water in dry seasons? Which plants swell with nutrients? Which paths avoid predator trails? Oral memory, observation, and imitation kept the group alive. Predators on the Pleistocene plains were diverse and deadly. Leopards and large saber-toothed relatives like Dinophelus and Meganteron could ambush from brush or clamber into trees to take a sleeping hominin. Hyenas, faster and persistent, could run down many herbivores and compete for carcasses with Habilis. Crocodiles lurked at watering holes. Evidence from fossil sites showed tooth and claw marks on bones, patterns of damage matching scavenging sequences, and distributions of stone tools around carcasses. New discoveries continue to reshape the picture. For example, finds at Olduvai show bone tools and more complex butchery patterns that extend our understanding of early hominin behavior by hundreds of thousands of years. Each new layer of sediment can alter our understanding of which species did what and when. Science is alive. The story of Habilis is still being written by dirt and stone. Modern analyses show climate swings shrank Homo habitats, raising extinction risk. Habilis's legacy lived on in hands and tools. Subscribe.